Hello, I'm back with another devlog for my Russian roulette dual release horror game, Fate's Gamble. I've done a lot of things with my game. I like adding items, party members, and the new roll system. Please follow my Twitter and Blue Sky if you want. There will be timestamps if there's something that specifically interests you, but for now I'm going to talk about classes. I love games with classes, or jobs if you want to call them. Classes are one of my favorite mechanics to have in any game. Primarily inspired by Final Fantasy V, I thought, why don't I put something like this in my game? However, I didn't just want to copy the typical classes you see in RPGs, I wanted something more unique. You see, again, my game has a Russian roulette battle system, and it relies on horror. Heck, I don't even feel like it's an RPG. I've made design choices that most RPG creators would never do. So how do I make classes that fit a horror game that has a unique battle system, and make classes that feel like they've never been done before? My first idea was to have something like special attributes from Fallout. I felt like this would help create the roleplay experience I wanted. Then I decided to have 4 classes, mixing in with the special attributes. However, later on, I stopped liking the attributes and eventually forgot about them. I'm not exactly sure why, but I believe I got rid of them because having custom stats is kind of like having a difficulty setting.
Don't worry, this doesn't affect combat, just every other aspect of your whole life.
Wait, what the fuck?
Not that there's anything wrong with difficulty settings, but I felt like it would be difficult for me to develop a game that is meant to make you scared, as difficulty is a hard thing to balance in horror games. Well, back to classes. I have added a total of 6 classes. Well, technically 6. If you don't know, my game is a dual release, and has exclusive content for both versions. For now, let's call one Fate's Gamble VX Ace, and the other Fate's Gamble MV. As of now, I have created a new class exclusively for MV, which is the Gambler. More on that later. Anyways, at first, the classes were not too much. You can see I was going to have intelligence as a stat. The killer class was originally called the soldier class, and etc. They were still cool, but I feel like I have changed them to better fit what I want. To show what I've done, I'll go through each class to show what they do and what their purpose is. The Killer Class. If you're someone who wants to achieve genocide or neutral ending and have an easier time surviving battles, the Killer Class is for you. The Killer Class can achieve a maximum of 13 HP, which might not seem a lot, but a standard revolver does A standard revolver does +2 damage, and the Spy class can only have 10 HP. More on the Spy class later. So you can take an extra shot, which is a big deal. The Spy can take 3 shotgun shells, while the Soldier can take 4. Another thing the Killer class has is attack luck. So he can avoid situations when he's caught by an enemy, break down doors, or have an advantage of attacking people outside of the advantage system, all dictated by RNG. That's all I was planning. The class was not going to have any MP at all. However, and I'm not joking when saying this, as of writing this script, I legit remembered Orange Roulette had an item in Orange Royale mode called the Ticket, where you can shoot the opponent without being forced to shoot yourself. Meaning you could just pass it back to the opponent. So I'm gonna implement that for the Killer class. The Dealer! If you're someone who wants to achieve a pacifist or neutral ending, can make deals, have an easier time using the roll system, the Dealer class is for you. The Dealer class can make deals to get items or dictate how the game goes. The Dealer has higher charismatic luck than the Spy, which is helpful for using the roll system. If you don't know what I mean by dictate how the game goes, it's in reference to one of the enemies I talked about in the 9th devlog, the Dealers. You'll have to sign a contract that makes you follow their rules, which would be something like no items, only specific items, certain weapons allowed, etc. With the dealer class, any enemy that comes to contact with you will have to follow your rules. And like I said before, you can also make deals with the enemies to trade items, and have an easier time with the roll system. And if you haven't been following me on my itch.io, Twitter, or Blue Sky Devlogs, you probably don't know what I mean by roll. Let's explain roll. While I don't like to compare them, I want to stress the fact that my game is different from Undertale. However, the roll system is based off of Undertale's axe system. It's a way to pacify your opponents. However, mine is more luck-based and more around role-playing as your character. The problem with role-playing in video games is that you're given a set of options, you could say. I'm not saying it's bad, heck, I'm using it for the Ask tab, but it's a set of options that you can say, and that just doesn't get rid of limits. Something like 3, 5, 6, or even 10 options are still limiting, compared to imagination. Something like D&D is more of how I would imagine a roleplay experience. You can do whatever you want, say whatever you want, all by using your imagination, which makes D&D the best role-playing experience. What is a role-playing experience when it limits your role-playing? Again, there's nothing bad about narrative choice, but it can be hard to say if you want to say something other than the options provided, or say one of the options but in a different way. Anyways, when making roll, I noticed Undertale's text box would describe what your character has said rather than actually show what they said. I like this because your imagination fills in the details. That's what we need. Although Undertale's axe system can kind of break. You're very limited in what you can choose with your specific enemies. For example, you get the option Flirt with Papyrus, or with Greater Dog you get the option to Pet. Of course those are fine, but obviously they don't have the same choices. And you're forced to pacify them in the way the game wants you to, instead of pacifying them in your own way. My game doesn't do that. While it's not perfect, my game has technically 5 choices for roll: Judge, Insult, Compliment, Intimidate, and Other. I'll skim over these quickly. Judge isn't the same as Insult. Sometimes using the Judge option actually makes people happier, and realize what they do is wrong. It just depends on the NPC you're talking to takes it well. Insult can either make the NPC mad or sad. Compliment is a weird one I haven't quite figured out yet. It can make the NPC happy, but it can also make them feel weirded out by you or angry. I'm liking that this is how it works, but I don't know if I should change some things up. Intimidate can scare an NPC or can make them angry. Other is an odd case. It's mainly for when I feel like something doesn't quite fit in any other category. For example, when you click Other, you get the Convince to be party member option. Yes, you can make anyone a party member in this game. Which, how would I make that a specific option for a choice? I could create a Convince option, but that would be hard. Something like Convince would have to be specific. It's not like Compliment or Insult, where the player can imagine what they're going to say because their intention is simple. They want to make the NPC feel some kind of emotion. If you're complimenting someone, you want them to be happy. Unless you're passive-aggressive. But you get what I mean. With Convince, how do I, the developer, know what the player is thinking? Are they trying to convince the NPC to join their party? Are they trying to convince the NPC that what they're doing is wrong? Then why not just use the Judge option? Are they trying to convince the NPC to give them something? Yeah, that's kind of the importance of Other. It's the miscellaneous one. The one that's more about being specific on what you're saying. Wow, I said I'll skim over these quickly, and here I am talking about Other. Also, if any of you feel like I should add more choices to roll, rather than just the 5, please let me know in the comments down below. Okay, one last thing about roll, because we need to get back into classes. I don't like that the enemies in Undertale move. It breaks the illusion that I'm supposed to imagine what they're doing. How am I supposed to imagine what they're doing in the text box when that's the complete opposite of what they're doing in front of me? My plan is to fix this to make a screen fade out, to help more focus your imagination with the text box, rather than on the character themselves. Anyways, let's get back into classes. If you want a somewhat jack-of-all-trade who's focused on stealth and good to use for really any route, genocide, pacifist, or neutral, then the spy class is for you. The spy class can go invisible for a short time, can have charismatic luck, although not as much as the dealer though, can make his own bullets, for example a concussion bullet, which makes your opponent have 70% chance to miss if he is shot with it, can have a maximum of 10 HP, can lockpick doors if he has a lockpick item. I like where the spy sits at. I don't think I'll change much on this class unless I come up with another bullet. But yeah, I think it's good. If you want a class more focused on skill and the ability to control your opponent, the Psycho class is for you. The Psycho class can read minds. This can help tell the player their weakness or where the live round is if your opponent knows it, or it could also tell you how much HP or MP they have. Mind control is another thing they can do. This can control the enemy to, of course, do whatever you want. You can spin the chamber again with telekinesis instead of just spinning the chamber once and never being able to do it again. And last thing is you can interact with elements around the room with telekinesis. That one's a little bit weird. Yeah, so I'm sorry if the blank black background of my game isn't amusing. Later on there will be proper backgrounds, and in those backgrounds the player can use their telekinesis to interact with the room, which can help you out in battle. If you want a class more focused on party members and support, look no further than the Doctor class. With this class you can revive a teammate. You can also see the opponent's HP, but it doesn't cost MP unlike the Psycho class. The Doctor class can also help their teammate or themselves get a dose of the defense syringe, which is a new item that I'm replacing the heal syringe with. If you don't know what the defense syringe is, it can help take no damage. Its buff goes away once shot at or your 2 turns are up. If you used it more than once, it will actually damage you. And the last thing is, you can switch weapons in battle. If you guys don't know, I had a short video talking about why I don't have any health items in my game. I think you should watch that if you want to know why I replaced the healing syringe. Okay, we're on to a doozy. This class will only appear in the MV version. I must say again that my game is going to be a dual release, much like Pokémon. But anyways, I feel like the best way to describe this class is to call them a wildcard. This class uses TP, which starts at 0. Always starts at 0 when you're in battle. But you'll build it up with MP or shooting your opponent. You can use TP to do a lot of the powers that the other classes have. Yes, I'm not joking. My plan is to make this class kind of do anything. If you want to know what they can do with TP, for example, you can get a guaranteed attack with a high cost of TP. With a low cost of TP, you have a random chance of getting a guaranteed attack or just wasting TP. So it's very RNG based. If you want, you could also use a magic spell for a random chance of getting some TP. But there's a chance that MP could just be wasted, or you could just take damage. So again, it's very RNG based. There is a chance I could come up with more ideas with this class, but for now I think it's good. Alright, so we know what the classes do, and what their purpose is, but how do we get them? And can we upgrade their powers? Well, I'm not sure how to answer the first question. I don't want people to just change classes on a whim. Like, I don't want people to just change into a dealer for role-specific stuff, and then use the killer class for beating enemies without penalty. That would be cheap. So I could either make the player pay to change classes, or let the player change classes only when they die. As for upgrading, you might think I'll use leveling up as a way. But no. Now hold on. If there's anyone who's into RPGs, I know this might turn off some people. But keep in mind, this is a horror game. I don't want leveling up to be a way to beat up enemies easily, because then it won't be scary. Also, I want gear to be the main way to get upgrades, so it's totally dependent on your wallet rather than XP, which gives you the problem. Do I buy items to help quickly beat this enemy, or do I save up for an upgrade? I think giving the player a choice makes it better. This is to give the player decidophobia, and it's one of my main focuses. Alright, that's all I have for my devlog. If you want, go check out Fate's Gamble in the link in the description, and go check out my forms of social media. Alright, see you soon.